The Perfect Lie, a Jessie Hunt psychological suspense, Book 5. Written by Blake Pierce. Narrated by Ulka S. Mohanty.
The Perfect Look, a Jessie Hunt psychological suspense, Book 6. Written by Blake Pierce. Narrated by Abigail Reno.
The Perfect Lie, a Jessie Hunt psychological suspense, Book 5. Written by Blake Pierce. Narrated by Ulka S. Mohanty. Chapter 1. Jessie almost had him. The suspect was about 10 yards ahead of her. They were both running on the sand, which felt surprisingly cold under her bare feet. The beach was virtually empty, and she wondered when her backup would arrive. The suspect was bigger than her, and if he turned around, she might have to shoot him to maintain her advantage. She wanted to avoid that if at all possible. Suddenly, with the man almost in grasping distance, he seemed to collapse, but then she realized that he was actually sinking. A moment later, he dropped through the sand right before her eyes. Jessie barely had time to process that he'd fallen through a sinkhole on the beach before she felt herself being sucked down, too. She tried to grab onto anything she could to prevent herself from falling into the hole, but there was nothing but loose sand. Still, she clung to it even as she disappeared under the dune. When she regained consciousness, she realized she was in what seemed like a sea cave. She had no recollection of how she got there. She saw the suspect she had been chasing, lying on his stomach in the dirt across from her. He wasn't moving, likely knocked out. Glancing around, she tried to get a better sense of her surroundings. It was only then that she realized she was standing up with her arms above her head. Her wrists were tied with a rope that was attached to the top of the cave wall. The rope was so tight that the tips of her toes barely touched the ground below. As her head cleared, a horrifying realization hit her. She'd been in this position before. This was the exact scenario she'd faced 2 months ago when her own father, the brutal serial killer Xander Thurman, had captured and tortured her before she'd managed to kill him. Was this some copycat killer? How was that even possible? The details of the incident had been kept secret. Then she heard a noise and saw a shadow in the mouth of the cave. As he stepped into view, she tried to identify him, but he was backlit by the sun, and his features were obscured. All she could see was the silhouette of a tall, thin man and the gleam of the long knife in his hand.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?